right. Welcome, everybody, and Carol and Mr. or Ms. Allen. I'm Nancy Vandell, chairperson of the NCC and CAC Bylaws Subcommittee. And we have three of our other subcommittee members here at the moment, and the fourth will be arriving later. So I'm going to ask each of subcommittee members to introduce themselves.
My name is Susan Schomburg.
I'm Wyatt Angelo.
I'm Tom Sipe. I act as editor.
Very, very great editor. And then Michael Beachley is another member who will be coming a little bit later. So I just want to review the agenda real fast. We have two more people. One more. Welcome, Bree. She's still connecting. Welcome, Lori. So I'm going to go ahead and share the agenda. I think I had it all ready to go, so.
Easy for you to say you're going to share it.
I know. Not that. Oh, this is ridiculous. I'm going to go back and get out of the agenda. Okay, somehow it went back. Okay, can everybody see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, good. So basically we're going to go through today with some opening remarks about our process, and then because we have so few people, we're going to not worry about the rules for discussion. Just please feel free to ask questions. Today, we're just going to mainly do an overview of the document structure and go through the procedures as a whole so that you get an idea of how we're organized and what we're all about for this year of work. And then as we go through the different policies with their related procedures, then there's an opportunity for you to do some discussion, but they're going to be quite brief. And then we'll have a meeting poll at the end just to get some of your feedback. And although I think we'll still do the meeting poll. And that's it. So our bylaws were we had this process last year with Bylaws Subcommittee, and I think most of you were involved with that process. They were approved last May after extensive work by the committee to rewrite them entirely, and then also from the community providing feedback through coming to our meetings, emailing us, talking with us, coming to feedback sessions. We had 9 feedback sessions, and then ultimately an approval meeting in May. So this year we're tackling the policies, procedures, and references, which is a brand new document. We haven't had that before, and it's really to flesh out the bylaws and provide more information, particularly to people that have to administer the NCAC. But it can affect all members, so we think it's important to get community input on that, and that's why we're having another series of feedback sessions on it. I just want to say thank you for attending. And we know this is an incredibly busy period between our work, the community plan work, the regular meetings, all sorts of stuff going on in other parts of the community. So we really appreciate your taking the time to come. I think so. You'll see that this is a new document. We've been working hard on it. The document we're going to go through today is still in quite a draft form. We have a lot more to add to it, and you'll see that as we flesh out information in our upcoming policies and procedures. But it's already draft 29, revision 29. And we are going to go through this in more detail. So tonight is going to be going through the structure. Tom is going to go through the structure of the document and then go through procedure 1, which Wyatt's going to cover in more detail. We won't revisit that. And then the others, we're just going to briefly go through and just kind of show you how they appear in the document. to be able to, so we welcome your input as we go through, but if you have any suggestions for us, all of this is in the meeting folder. Hopefully you've taken a look, or you have access to the meeting folder so that you can get any of these documents yourself. This folder is going to be set up where every latest document will go into this folder, so you'll be able to see the changes as they go forward, or at least the latest version. Everything is being video recorded. It's available in the NCAC archives. So everything that we do is open and according to Oregon Public Meeting Law. So I want to show you the feedback session schedule. We're not sure how much interest there's going to be, so we've gone ahead and scheduled 8, but we're not sure if they're all going to be needed. We'll see how quickly we go through them. But they're either on Wednesday evenings at 7 or Saturday mornings at 10. And we hope you'll join us for more of those. And I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and share the document. And turn it over to Tom to go over the, why did I go over here? And turn it over to Tom to actually go through the discussion. And Tom, I'll try to follow along with you as you talk about it.
Okay, well, basically everything can be really shown here. The document itself is, as Nancy mentioned, really an outgrowth of the need for more specificity in the bylaws. But we didn't really want to clobber up the bylaws with a lot of things which might not be, might change over time, or might be just too wordy to go into the rules and regulations of the organization. So we have this as an addendum. It's actually referred to in the bylaws as policies and procedures. But we also added references. Well, you might wonder what those 3 things are. The policies are basically statements that are to aid the people who are running the organization, or running meetings, that cover more the philosophy of what is to be done in a particular situation. It has the excuse me, just getting over a cold, and I thought I was over it. And it serves as a reference for the people who need to make decisions for something, about something which is not explicitly mentioned in the bylaws. Procedures are meant to be those descriptions of what should be done in particular situations. An example is a procedure or a policy may say something to along the lines of having, oh, excuse me, having the meeting minutes taken at every meeting. But the procedure then talks about what specifically needs to be in those and how they're to be handled, a lot of the details, and some of which may change. So we think we look at the policies as being relatively stable, the procedures being things which may change based on needs, and then we have the references, which are things which are really resources for either the community as a whole or for the individual subcommittees. There is some technical language. I have a background in doing international standards. And so down at the bottom, you see these terms. And a lot of people use some of these terms interchangeably. Shall and must actually mean different things in a classical sense. And should is you don't have to do it, but it's a good idea. May means you're permitted to do it. There's no objection to it. And can is once again a little bit vague, so it's also not used as well as must. So that's basically the structure of the document is a section of policies, a section on procedures, and a sections on references. And there we go. And as you see in the structure here in the table of contents, we've tried to group things which are very similar in nature together to make it easier to find something that you might want. But the policy number one, which Wyatt's going to talk about, is really the keystone. We went quite a while without that policy one in place, but it really does bring together all of the philosophy behind what these standards, what these policies, procedures, and references should be. And you can read the various kinds of things. And there we go. There's lots of stuff here. This is the, what is it, the 29th version?
29th.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think you're probably editing revision 30 as we go through today in case we see
Yeah.
stuff, right?
And the reason for that is that I want to capture, as the editor, I want to capture all of the changes we make and have them, and I have Word has a capability of having a tracking changes. So I do a track changes version on every one of our versions of it, so that versions of the document, so that we can see what changed when. We recently had a question about, well, that one went away. Where did it go away? Well, we could actually tell when something went away. We still don't quite know why, but it did go away at some point. So I think that's basically a good overview of what the document's about. It's about how to run the organization in detail, and also references and resources for people who want to know what's going on. And I'll now entertain questions. Please, somebody ask a question. I'm unquestionable,
Okay.
I guess.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you were very clear, Tom. So thank you. And questioner attendees, just please feel free to break in anytime. So nice thing that Tom does with his documents. I mean, he's an incredible editor, and he's also the editor for the community plan. So we've really gotten him quite a bit of work this year. But is that you can go into the table of contents and go directly to the policy that you're looking for or the procedure. So I'm going to turn it over to Wyatt now. Part of this was in the introduction to our bylaws last year that Wyatt wrote, and we thought this would be great to put in the beginning of the policies, procedures, and references. And then Tom went through and attached different policies and procedures to it. So Wyatt, you're on.
As Nancy noted, the standards and values policy number one is essentially a reflection of the letter that we attach to the bylaws, and seeks to achieve or essentially point out the principles that we tried to follow in development of not only the bylaws, but the policies and procedures. You know, they are transparency, access, inclusiveness, and fairness, and respect, and all those terms are really have wide meanings within the context of the policies and procedures. But generally speaking, it's designed to make the NCAC an open and welcoming forum for the exchange of ideas and positions. And everything that you see in the new bylaws and the policies and procedures that we're presenting tonight is hopefully a reflection of those core values. All of the other policies and procedures are designed to complete the implementation of these principles and that guide the creation of new bylaws, guide to the creation of new bylaws. So everything you see here will have a reference to not only bylaws, whether stated or not stated, but also to procedures that would follow as well as policies.
Okay, thank you. So does anyone have any questions about this? Because this is really quite the model for what we were trying to achieve. Okay, well, thank you very much. So we're going to go on now to access to NCAC records. Wyatt, you're on again, and this is policy 2 and procedure 11.
Yeah, most of the documents and the records of the association are on the website. And we wanted to make sure that they are available to all who want to access them. What we've done, however, is created an exception to privacy, where in fact we're trying to protect people from the extremes of people's reactions to certain things. And so physical addresses and contact information may be limited. And so we try to follow the Oregon Public Meetings Law with respect to these things, but also to safeguard the privacy of the individual members and its officers. We are in the process of trying to develop a document retention policy with the county at this point, and there will be more on that to come. But there is a retention policy at the state level, and we as a county entity are going to be trying to follow that retention policy and make our records available at some point or another, possibly through the county, if not on our own website. The other part of access is that there are records that a limited number of records, for instance, our expenditures on our debit card, which are limited, very limited, but which can be accessed or can be requested. But we try to make a policy that is convenient not only to the keeper of those records, but also to the person requesting them in the event that something is requested because there's a question about them. One of the things that has come up oftentimes, and you'll see it almost everywhere anymore, is emails between members of the association's board, executive board, as well as members of the committees. And so in the future, we are going to be trying to make sure that all communications between those people is documented in the NCAC email system, and made easier to retrieve for people who are wondering or curious about what those communications may be. But this is the starting point for that.
Thank you, Wyatt. Any questions about records? One of the things that Sarah Absher, director of Tillamook County's Community Development, says is that it's really, everything is available. We're doing a great job as an organization, keeping our records and making them available to our members. So if you ever have any trouble finding things, just send an email to info@. Okay, we're now going to enter an area of minutes, and so they're kind of scattered around. And Susan and I are going to. Oh, go ahead.
This is Lori. Could I just
Hi,
make a
Lori.
comment?
Yes.
I think that the whole thing of public meeting laws and emails, I respect the law and I respect transparency, but I also have experienced that sometimes it limits people's participation when they find it too complicated to communicate with people and are kind of afraid of breaking rules. And so then they just retreat. And I'm not sure exactly how to solve that, but the more and more you make it complicated for people to give their opinion, the less and less I think you'll get participation.
Lori, I'd like to address that a little bit. I know as a fellow committee member in the community plan, it is sometimes difficult for us to actually transact business. But the vast majority of people in the NCAC are not bound by the same rules that people who are in subcommittees or are officers of the organization. So yes, I agree that it makes things difficult, but you could send emails, for instance. You can't send them to your fellow community plan members, but you could send them to all of the people in the bylaws committee. So and we do know that we are probably going to have to come up with some training for the Oregon Public Meeting Law, because people who are not familiar with that, which was me up until recently, don't know about that. And that's something that needs to be in the procedures, which would be guides for how to adhere to that, what the limitations and what the freedoms are.
Yeah, that's something that was certainly new to me also, and I think to all of us on the subcommittee when we heard that we were under that, and it took us a while, but yeah, and I'd be happy to talk with you offline, or I'm sure any of the committee members would be happy to too, Lori. Is just, you know, what we have been told is we are an arm of the county. This is the NCAC is actually a government organization, and as such, we're subject to Oregon public meeting law. So, but we would be happy to try to facilitate with you ways to make that easier. And I'd like to follow up with you on that if I could. So I've made a note. Does that sound okay?
It does. I just would like it to be part of the record that if you're trying to get the maximum community participation, the harder you make it for them to communicate and the more fearful they are about rules and breaking rules. I mean, some people don't care, but if you care about things like that, or you just hear that you can and can't do certain things and you can't talk unless blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you
Yeah,
got
I
my
guess
point.
yeah, I'd like to follow up because I sounds like you have some examples and be helpful to understand more about what that is. But you're definitely in the record right now.
Okay.
And let me just say, I didn't see that you had your hand raised, Lori. If you could, if people could put in the chat when we're actually sharing. I don't see everybody who's here, and I just noticed Michael Beachley has joined us. Welcome, Michael. So if you could put something in the chat, Susan's going to be monitoring the chat, and then we'll be able to call on you. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
And thank you for your input on that. We'll follow up.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to
Can I make a brief comment on that one, Nancy?
sure.
The rules that we're referring to are for members of committees and subcommittees and so on and so forth. But the public can say whatever they want, to whomever they want, whenever they want. And we understand that and we honor that. Part of the structure of what we're doing here is to make it possible for as many people to make that opportunity to speak their mind and share their ideas and so on. Even though we as a subcommittee need to follow those particular rules, you are invited to lay on whatever you like.
Very good, Michael. I agree. Yeah, no, it's so Oregon. Well, I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but Oregon public meeting law doesn't allow subcommittee members to talk to more than one other subcommittee member. So, including the executive board, can't talk to any more unless you're in a public meeting. So I think that's what Lori's getting at. But in terms of being able to speak in a meeting, or as Michael said, anybody can send information or call anybody and talk. But I do want to follow up with you, Lori. So going into the subject of minutes or of meetings, we're going to flip around into anything related to minutes right now. And Susan and I are going to kind of share this. So I'm going to start with minutes. And basically the bylaws call for minutes to be made in any regular membership meeting, executive board meeting, or subcommittee meeting. Task forces do not need to keep minutes, but it's recommended that they keep at least some notes. The minutes actually, they can be very brief. When you go down into the related procedure, we outline exactly what needs to be in the minutes. They're not meant to be comprehensive necessarily. They can be, but at least to be able to give people an idea of what might be in the video if they wanted to look at that, and have any decisions that are made encapsulated in the minutes. So that's all I'm going to say about minutes. Urgent meetings is number 6. And Susan, that's yours.
Yeah, so the questions arose as to what would constitute an urgent meeting, and we've kind of fleshed it out that urgent meetings should actually be rare, but there are certain instances in which they are necessary, especially when things happen between general meetings, or if the executive board needs to convene. An example that we give is during FEMA, where the information came to us between general meetings yet as the NCAC, we wanted to take a position and write a letter. And Mark Everett read the letter at the county meeting. And in order to do that, an urgent meeting was called, both by the executive board and a general membership meeting. And so it's important as things come up to have that capability. And so we've just kind of fleshed it out here in the policy.
Thank you, Susan. It had come up in the bylaws discussion about why would we ever need one? And last November was kind of an example. It should be rare. The difference is that you can have up to 24 hours in the bylaws to notice for an emergency or an urgent meeting, whereas the standard notices apply for special meetings or regular meetings. So, thank you. And then information only meetings, number 17. That's you, Susan.
Let me go down to this one. So currently there are 3 types of membership meetings: regular, special, and urgent. And there's an additional one, which we're calling information only meeting. An example of this would be if Oregon Fish and Wildlife came to speak about bear safety, or something where no business is being conducted. It's basically for information to NCAC members, which is important, we feel, for the community, whether it's from a safety standpoint or an information standpoint. Let's see what else with
Tonight's meeting is a information only meeting, feedback sessions.
Yeah. And straw polls can be used during information meetings, but they are not binding. It's just a way to kind of take the temperature of the group. And a quorum is not required for information only meetings.
Yeah, thank you. And then the last, and then notices is where? It's in procedure 15, I think. No, oh, I didn't even get this one in there. So there's, I think it's 17. Nope. Well, I'll just cover notices real fast. Basically, we have to use the notices that are in the bylaws. But setting meeting times and mode is another area that is a procedure and how you actually specify that. So the bylaws specify the meeting date, but the procedure sets up the time. So because the policies and procedures can be just voted on by the membership with a simple majority at any time, the regular time can be set. The bylaws do allow changes to the meeting day and time with a appropriate notice and that kind of thing. So that's basically what it is. The bylaws state that every NCAC meeting of any type that's not a task force meeting needs to be via Zoom, and then it can be expanded to be in person as well as Zoom. And I think that's it. Voting is another area that we're going to be spending a lot of time on in the future, how we do voting, but we're not going to go through that tonight. Some of that's in the bylaws itself under Article 5 meetings, but this goes into how we actually conduct votes and how we do the polls. So,
Nancy, I wanted to let you know there is a comment in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Can you read it, Susan?
Sure. Carol Hoke wrote, "Open meeting laws apply and this subcommittee is adhering to them. I appreciate it."
Oh, thank you very much, Carol. Okay, so next one is conflicts of interest, which has been really interesting because we all state when we're in subcommittee meetings and executive board or in regular meetings, whether we have a conflict of interest or not. And so we really looked into that. So I'm going to turn that over to Wyatt. It's policy 4. And sorry for all this mad scrolling. And it's also it's also in procedures, related procedures, and references. So you get it with all of them.
Mhm.
Policy 4, procedure 13, and reference 8.
Yeah, this is one we've wrestled with, and as you note, in the current bylaws, there is a requirement that we all affirmatively declare one way or the other whether we have a conflict or not at the beginning of each meeting. And the policies and procedures are supposed to flesh out the processes to be followed. And in this particular case, that there are two prongs to this provision. The declaration by officers implementing the transparency aspect of it, and distinguishing between a conflict and a bias, which is maybe a fine point to some, but a conflict actually exists when there's an undue influence on the person seeking to vote versus a person who has a view that is strongly held. One is a bias, that's the latter. The former is, in fact, a conflict of interest. Procedure 13, which we have somewhere. Procedure 13,
Here's
not
one.
policy.
Procedure. Thank you. Okay. 13. There it is.
Requires that the person who declares a conflict describe with specificity the nature of the conflict and whether they intend to vote or not vote on the issue when the vote is taken. We thought we needed a little bit of a process of due process, which requires that the person who decides that they're going to vote despite their conflict of interest be subject to questioning by the membership as to why they would continue to vote. There was a discussion at length and my own concerns about creating during the course of our decision-making process a procedure whereby a trial would be held within the context of a meeting to determine whether a conflict is disqualifying or not. And in my opinion, that would have been overkill, and we chose not to do that, but to make it as uncomfortable as possible for the person who is seeking to vote despite their conflict to essentially justify their position to the membership. It seems to us, and this is one of the themes that we've been dealing with throughout the course of our bylaws discussions, is that the NCAC is an advisory body only. And so no vote is binding on the county to which we make recommendations. And as a safety valve for every vote that's taken, there is the possibility of creating a minority report in opposition to the vote to be submitted simultaneously with the results of the poll or vote. This essentially gives the party who seeks to have an opposing view the option of presenting their views to the county commissioners along with our recommendations. And so for that reason and for those reasons, it was deemed unnecessary to have the mini trial, which would be a distraction to everything we're trying to do and the mission of the NCAC. So that's the core logic of it. People say that attorneys want to do trials. I do not. So,
And I'm going to move us along, Wyatt, because we'll talk about it in more detail in a future meeting. But thank you. I do want to mention in the resources, we give resources to people that'll, particularly the people that have to state a conflict, where they can go for more information, and this handy dandy chart here that Tom was able to edit from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. And so we've taken this very seriously, and thank you, Wyatt. And so, Michael, I'm going to put you on the spot here with straw polls, because we have a document that will be discussed on Friday in our meeting, but we haven't actually put it in it. So, Michael, if you could do something very brief on policy 7 and policy 5 and procedure 10.
Oh, yes, right, surveys and polls. Well, from time to time, it serves all of us to find out what the sense of feeling or understanding or perspective is of the membership, both affirmative and negative for any issue that may arise. Um, Surveys and polls are different issues. A survey is a much more formal issue. A survey may be in the form of a written document that is widely distributed. It may be in the form of something that the county asks us to deal with on an issue that the county is considering, and so on and so forth. And we have spent a great deal of time, and will continue to do so, on the development of surveys, such that the survey itself has certain values built into its structure, and one of those is clarity.
I'm going to ask you to mute. I think you're typing.
I'm not typing. Huh.
No, Tom, I think maybe.
Oh, Tom, okay.
Or
And
whittling. Maybe he's whittling. There's a sound coming through.
Tom is a whittling artist.
Or maybe
and
it's not you, Tom.
yeah.
Sorry.
And the issue is simplicity, equity, neutrality, and understandability, and so on and so forth, so that we can get an honest sense of what our constituency feels and regards any particular issue that may occur.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, straw votes, on the other hand, are just simply things that we need to know on the fly as we are discussing things or debating things or whatever, and do not carry anywhere near the sense of urgency or meaning that a survey may have.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And subcommittee, I would be sending out the draft here tonight for you guys to review for Friday's meeting. So policy 7, I'm going to take, and it's on community engagement, and a related policy 13 and procedure 14. So we've spent quite a bit of time also on community engagement, because during this past year, particularly, we've received a whole bunch of requests from outside organizations to communicate information to our members, or to partner on activities or promote the work of the outside organization. And so we've developed a draft policy, and when we get to this feedback session where we talk about it in more detail, we're really going to want to hear the community's input on this. But we've provided a policy on what we're going to do in general, but also in the procedure, we look at how we evaluate in more detail. So I'm going to go down to procedure 14. So it's quite detailed about how people evaluate, depending on whether it's a partnership request, whether it's a request to promote something for another organization, or whether and how we would go about doing that. So I know Tom is dying to get into this and edit. He doesn't like more than 3 levels of bullet points. So it will eventually change, but at least the meaning is in there. And so we will greatly appreciate your input on that. And then we also have learned, I think it's policy 13 on fundraising, quite a bit from Sarah Absher, that we really shouldn't be dealing with money. So application for an acceptance of grants need to be approved by the NCAC membership, but if they are approved, then we forward that to the county and they'll look into it, and that the county would administer any of those financial transactions through the community development department. So because again, we are an arm of the county. So that's all we have in that area. Are there any questions so far or comments? Okay, we're going to move on to public statements and positions, policy 8 and procedure 6, Tom. And you are on, Tom.
Public statements. All right, I didn't realize I was going to be talking on that one. Okay, one of the things I should mention is that if you see a little check mark on them, it means that we have, as a committee, subcommittee, agreed on the contents, and we think it's pretty close. But that doesn't mean it's done. So basically, we don't want people to go out. We don't want statements that go outside the purview of the NCAC's mission, which is basically in Article 2. We want to make sure that, and as a sort of a quasi-governmental organization, since we're volunteers and not paid, that makes us sort of a quasi-governmental agency. But essentially, we need to make sure that we don't advocate any position, or because what we would be doing is saying that the county had that position. So essentially, this is a way of making sure that the county is insulated from having somebody speak for them that they don't want to have speak for them. That makes sense? I don't think so. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think also that it goes into a little bit on advocacy, which we get into a little bit later also,
Mhm.
that we will never take a position on a candidate for public office or ballot measures, but we have other policies that deal with at least letting in fact, that's in the one I just talked about briefly, that I'll go back to it, that if we do get a request like we just recently did, to have someone come in and speak to us about a legislative issue, or if there are candidates running for public office, that we can handle that. We just have procedures around how to do it. And we just, we need to be able to have both sides come in and talk about an issue if it's a ballot measure, or have all candidates. We don't have to have them come in. We have to invite them, or have candidates, all the candidates for public office come in. And we will not take a position, but at least it gives information to members if they're interested. So the executive board just did get a recent request to have the campaign for the upcoming transient lodging tax that's on the May ballot come in and speak to the membership. And so we're having a special executive board meeting coming up in a week to talk about, actually on Tuesday, this next Tuesday, to talk about whether we should set up a special membership meeting for them to do that. Okay, and then that also goes into procedure 6. Reports to outside agencies. They're kind of related here.
Yeah, essentially, we need to make sure that we are consistent in our presentation, that we identify who we are, if there's any actions taken, basically the number of people involved in it, and a clear statement. And it says down in the bottom 3 bullets, basically, this is the essence of it. A reasoning about the recommendation, alternate recommendations that are considered, and the reason for declining them, and minority opinions and alternate recommendations with number of supporters. We want to be completely transparent when we make a statement that we are able to make, exactly how many people said it and how many people disagreed and what problems they had with it.
Okay. Any
And I think
questions on this?
that's basically,
Oh.
the rest of it's just details.
Okay. Okay, so the next area is outreach communications, which Susan and I have been talking. This is kind of new to the committee, but we're looking at maybe doing an outreach task force thing in general and embedding communications into it, and then also having some other procedures. So it's policy 9 that would be around finding officers and committee people. And task force people. So you're on, Susan.
Yeah, so for outreach
Oh,
communication.
and let me just introduce Susan as the chair of the outreach task force. So another hat.
The outreach task force is in its infancy, and we are still getting members to represent each of the neighborhoods. What we feel is important is to have representation from each of the neighborhoods that are identified by the NCAC area map. which are the Nesquin Village, Nesquin North, Hot Creek Hills, Hills of Nesquin, Beechcrest, South Beach, Sahali, Valhalla, Wainema, and Slab Creek. And currently we have one person from at Beechcrest. We have one person from Hot Creek Hills. There's someone who's very interested, but we're not sure if she has the time to commit from Sahali. Anyway, we feel that by having this outreach tentacles into each of the neighborhoods, those point people would have finger on the pulse of their neighborhoods and be able to kind of encourage people and let people know what's going on in the NCAC so that we can grow the membership and create greater awareness. We know that's not going to do everything for us. The other thing we're looking at is permanently displaying NCAC meeting notices, and we have one up right now at the Nesquin provisions on the community board, which is in the back. And I'm currently looking at laminating other ones that can be put out in the weather, so to speak. We've identified South Beach has the central mailboxes. There are places around the community where they can be put on what are not utility poles, which is what we typically do, but actually display points. And we want to reach out to the different HOAs as well. So some ideas that we have for growing the membership. One of them is, and Mark Everett has done this fabulously, is by writing articles for the NCA, the Nesquin Community Association newsletter, to let those members there know what we're doing. And also an idea to have a speaker program, and we've done this already on one of the general meetings where we invited people to talk about the need for additional volunteers through our local volunteer fire department and the emergency outreach CERT. Other ideas are to invite Department of Fish and Wildlife to talk about bear education, possibly others to talk about king tides, maybe make use of the Oregon Coast Today calendar section for
Okay, I'm
people.
gonna move us on, Susan.
Okay.
Thank you very much, but we'll go into it. Susan's done a great job writing all this, and we'll cover it in more detail when we get to this in the future. We're just doing a quick overview today. The honor system, if you could say something brief, Wyatt, on policy 10 and then procedure 1.
Yeah, that's essentially members seeking to vote or persons seeking to vote on general membership issues are really not required to prove anything beyond the fact that they claim that they are a member or qualified to be a member without going through a vetting process. It was just deemed too expensive or too time consuming for the administrative staff and really didn't add to anything and deterred people from voting. So it's been limited severely in the sense of whether we require any type of vetting process at all. It's just very simple. You just have to be advised by the chairman of what the qualifications are before a vote, and then you make the decision as to whether in fact you qualify.
Thank you very much, Wyatt. And let's see. I'm getting lost. Oh, members registration and privacy policy 11, and I'm just going to be very brief here. We just want to have a registration annually, and then for people when they're joining, so we have an idea who our members are. So either at the April membership meeting or the June membership meeting, the sign up for the meeting will just have a request for more information. And this was done back in the June meeting from 2023, and it just gives us an updated membership list that talks a little bit about how they're a member and how to contact you. So we'll have a registration link on the website also. So this is something that we went around and around with County Council with bylaws, but subject to Oregon public meeting law, the names and membership qualification would be provided upon request to Tillamook County, but all other contact information will be kept confidential. So he agreed with that. It's actually in the Oregon Public Meeting Law. Any questions so far from anybody? Okay, can move on to Parliamentarian Michael, Policy 12.
Oh, very briefly, everybody pretty much agrees that having a parliamentarian who is dedicated to neutrality and to be an advisor in terms of process and procedure is a worthwhile addition to the organization. We can only hope that in future years, there will be people who have experience doing so. Both Nancy and I have extensive experience doing that. And so my own personal belief about that, being the organization's parliamentarian and others as well, is that I have a responsibility to remain neutral on things that are particularly challenging. But only to advise on clarity and neutrality and simplicity again, and fairness with the rights of the minority to have their voice spoken. And that when we are dealing with each other in a formal basis, that we follow established rules and processes so that there is no doubt as to how we arrived at our conclusions and programs and so on and so forth, and that it is all legitimate.
Thank you, Michael. And the organization's very fortunate to have you as our
Well,
parliamentarian.
we're fortunate
So,
to have you there as well, Nancy.
thank you. Okay, so on to procedure 14, monitoring task force, and that's Susan.
So in a nutshell,
Policy 14, procedure 9, and reference 2.
yeah, so the monitoring task force was an idea that Guy Sievert came to us with. He currently does a lot of monitoring with various agencies, also the Water District Sanitary, and felt that it would be a good idea for us to have. And so we have created a policy around that. Can we scroll to the reference section, and just in a nutshell to give people an idea, and I really won't go into detail other than I formulated a list, starting here with reference 2, and you can just scroll down. I've identified the point people, the phone numbers, the websites, and possible issues that Guy brought to my attention. And the task force going forward could split these up, but it's really important for us to know what's going on around our community and be able to convey that information to community members in a timely way. And that's the whole purpose for the monitoring task force.
Yeah, thank you. And we are looking for a chair for that. And Guy provided a huge amount of information that Susan fleshed out, and thank you both for that. It's something that would be nice for someone who's looking to contribute some, but not have to spend a lot of time on, to take 1 or 2 of these monitoring things and then report back to the chair, who can let us know if the membership needs to be alerted to anything of interest. So right now, Guy's doing it, but he's ready to retire. And since I'm down here, I'm going to go out of order a little bit. Tom, can you handle Oregon Public Meeting Law here? And it, oh, wait a minute. Nope, sorry, reference 3. Oregon Public Meeting Law is reference 3. It's right here. Oh, no, it's, it's procedure. Sorry, I am getting all. Okay, we're just going to go on in order. Updates to references section. That's policy 15. Sorry, I'm doing a terrible job of going back and forth. Hopefully people aren't getting dizzy. Okay, there you go, Tom. And you're muted. You're muted, Tom.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that. We want to make sure that the reference section is a living document. It's going to, people who are the contact points for various organizations, for instance, can change at a moment's notice. So we want to be able to make sure that we didn't have to wait for a meeting or call a special meeting just to change a contact person. So that this policy gives us permission to make minor changes that are just informational only, without having to go back and do anything other than notify the membership that things have changed.
Okay, thank you. And we'll also review annually. Use of name or title. And this was Wyatt's idea. And Wyatt, you go for it.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that due to the process or the possibility of reputational damage to the NCAC, that limitations were placed on officers or parties who are in leadership positions from representing themselves to outside agencies as having some imprimatur from the from the advisory committee when they shouldn't, and so this limits the officers from doing so.
Okay, thank you. And we're done with policies. Yay. We're going on to procedures. So we are on to procedure 2. This is what I was looking for, Tom.
Well, basically, this just requires us to use the Oregon Public Meeting Law in any NCAC business. And there's not much more to say than that. And
Okay. Thank you. So we're on to policy 4. Michael, changes to the bylaws.
Oh, yes, changes to the bylaws. Bylaws are not meant to be changed willy-nilly. They are there to be rules of order for the organization. And as such, it is a responsible thing to have bylaws reviewed from time to time, as well as to have a good, honest, and open review of any changes to the bylaws. And when the time comes for a vote, Robert's Rules requires that changing bylaws is so important that it takes 2/3 of a vote in order to be able to do so. We have articulated how we go about doing that the Bylaws Committee will receive any motions to change and consider those and report back to the organization. A lot of busyness is taken out of these bylaws and put in, as you can see here, into policies and procedures and references. So the bylaws are pretty simple, and comprehensive. So that's what they're about. Anybody can propose a change in the bylaw, but the act itself is important enough that that particular person or group of people really do need to make a case of understanding why a particular bylaw is being changed, and then it'll go into the process of being reviewed appropriately and openly and brought back to the organization for determination.
Thank you very much, Michael. And there's a typo there, Tom, where I have it highlighted.
Ooh, ouch, how embarrassing.
Yeah.
While I'm seeing it, I better point it out. You can.
That's a rarity.
It is. So, we might want to think about adding to this how they do it, how they put in their request, that they send it to NCAC at whatever our email is.
That's
Gmail.
that's a good point. Yeah.
NCAC bylaws@gmail.com.
Yeah. If somebody looks there and says, "How do I do that? I've got a good idea, but what do I do?" Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
So, Tom, did you make note of that?
Yes, it is.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next one is procedure 7, which the committee still has to talk about, but we spent quite a bit of time on it. And Michael or Wyatt, if you could just be extremely brief, because this is covered in depth here, and we're going to talk about it on Friday. But
it just creates a process for removal of persons from office of the NCAC with, the basic points of due process, which are notice and opportunity to respond. And we're still fleshing it out. So,
thank you. So there's a kind of 2 parts here. One is that Wyatt pointed out, we need to change the bylaws actually in this section, because the way the bylaws are written is that the executive board can actually remove subcommittee members, and they've been elected by the membership. So So we need to do a quick bylaws change at the same time. We'll probably have more to when we do the policies and procedures in May, to make it so that the body that created the position or appointed or elected the position is the one that would have the authority to remove the person. And so this is the actual proposal in terms of the actual how you remove and suspend the position. So it's kind of a long two-part thing that we'll go through as a subcommittee on Friday, and then bring back in more detail to you guys in a later feedback session. Okay, organization of subcommittees and task forces. Tom. Procedure 8.
I- Is off creating revision number 30.
Sorry. And if you're having trouble talking, I can help you with it.
Well, I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
Basically, maybe you better do it. I'm about to cough again.
Are you sure? Okay. So this is really more about how we select a chairperson and then other positions within a subcommittee or whatever, or a task force. And I think we probably need to add some other things like Susan and I were just talking about how do people say that they want to be elected, or how do they want to be part of a task force? So we don't have anything right now on how you do that. You know, does the outreach subcommittee, do people reach out to them, and then they're not supposed to do any real vetting other than whether the person's a member, but do they have a way to send something into, depending on whether it's the executive board or whoever, or anyway, we have some work to do in that area. But basically, this is how would you select a chairperson when you don't know people, and just give some information about that. So we're not going to go through that right now, but it's just very briefly on that. Executive board member email is, I guess we're going all the way down to 16. We've already talked about all these others. So basically, procedure 16, which I'm in the process of writing, is that NCAC executive board members need to have email addresses that, and I think somebody talked about that earlier today. I think under Oregon Public Meeting Law. But this talks about how to set it up, and we're working with Gary, our secretary, to do that right now. So our subcommittee right now has an official NCAC email that's ncacbylaws@gmail.com, and we can receive, and whenever I try to send something out, I try to use that email. And that way, if there ever is a records request, it's all documented, it's all in our archives and tracking. So so we're working on setting up similar kinds of things for each executive board member. And one of the good things about it is that as people change hands, as the offices change hands, then the emails go with the new person. So that's all we had for that. Okay, so we're done with procedures. We're now getting into the references section, and the contact information for executive board members is, we'll list that as soon as these emails are set up, then that will be listed in reference 1. And the executive board consists of chairperson, subcommittee chairpersons, and task force chairpersons. I think we need to take executive board out of that. Oh, no, sorry. That second one should be, it really needs to be elected officers, subcommittee chairpersons, and task force chairpersons.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Is the immediate past chair also on that executive board? I forget.
They are. I don't know that they're gonna, I suppose we could have an email for them too. That's a good point, Susan. Okay, so we will talk about number 1. Reference 1. And then we've already gone through reference 2. And Tom, do you want to talk about reference? What happened to 3?
Oh, it was right at the bottom of the,
Oh, that's right. Robert's Rules of Order. So
yeah.
Yeah.
in the bylaws, we do what policy, see, I guess I didn't put that in. That we do what Robert's Rules calls for, which is to say the newly revised. And so that they don't have to be changed. The bylaws don't have to be changed every time a new edition. So this is just saying that it's the 12th edition, which is the most recent one.
Well, that one must be mine.
Yes, this one is yours.
Okay.
Maps, Tom.
Yeah, we had quite a long discussion about what area the NCAC should represent. And this turned out to be the consensus. The reason we didn't put it in the bylaws document is that that's not really a document that kind of lends itself to having large drawings in it. And we thought that would be better, people would be better served having the reference map with some explanatory links available so that you could determine whether or not you're actually in the NCAC area, which is all the orange lines except for where it dips below the county line. This map actually describes our watershed. And something which is all important because if we don't have water, as Guy Siebert often says, if we don't have water, we don't exist. So all our water comes from this area. So the people inside that area need to know about it.
So the bylaws Article 3 refers to this map in the policies, procedures, and references. And nice job. And this is something you added recently, Tom. That's really cool.
Yeah, basically, and you'll notice those are not hard lines. They're just sort of fuzzy because there's no real actual definition of where these different neighborhoods that are listed in the outreach committee, outreach task force. But this is for people who don't know where things are, which it was me before this map, before we did this map, the various neighborhoods. Although it looks like Beechcrest has not got a highlight around it. I don't know why. It's right smack in the center. No, it's off to it's the blue one. Okay.
Yeah, it's the
Didn't have
blue one.
room for it.
If
Go ahead.
and Susan, you're looking for representatives from some of these different areas. So you'd kind of like to have one representative from each area on your outreach task force, right?
Yeah, yes. And we also included Wainema, which I'm realizing is not on this map. I mean, it's often people don't technically think of Wainema as Nescoin, but it's within the NCAC area map. That's
Okay.
why I included it on my outreach.
Okay. Then that's the area up there in the finger.
Yeah, really up near the tip.
Yeah. Okay.
Where the Nescoin Chamber Orchestra has concerts.
Yes. Okay. I will add that. And just because I'm a little bit fuzzy-headed, what is the name?
Wainema, W-I-N as in Nancy, E-M-A.
Okay, I'll add that.
Thank you. So job descriptions is being written, and we're going to have a special executive board meeting to talk about the policies and procedures and go over these when they're written with the executive board before we actually present them in general at a feedback session, just to make sure they're comfortable with everything. And then we have, oh, here's the parliamentarian duties. Okay, and then Tom, you are up for current ad hoc subcommittees and task forces. And this is our final one.
Well, I owe the committee the description. I supplied the description of the community plan steering subcommittee, which, by the way, I need to vet with them to make sure that they agree that that's what they do. This particular reference is meant to list all of the current subcommittees and that are not called out in the bylaws, and also task forces which are not called out in the bylaws.
So the ad hoc ones, the ones that are not permanent.
Yeah,
Okay.
ad hoc sounds so impermanent, but it is.
All right, and that's it for the policies and procedures. Thank you guys for hanging in. Does anyone, Carol or Lori, do you have any questions or comments for us additional? And just feel free to speak up at this point. Don't worry about putting stuff in the chat because we can see you now. Oh, it looks like there is a chat. Or maybe that's the one you covered before. Yeah. Okay.
I just want to thank you guys for all the hard work. It's obvious that there's a lot of time spent on all this, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Carol. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, we don't know what we're going to do when this is over.
I do.
Oh,
I-
do you?
Have some other time. Yeah, no, yeah, I think if whoever gets reelected for the subcommittee next year will hopefully not have to have quite as many meetings and homework to do, but we'll still have to, there'll be some tweaks.
Oh,
This
no,
isn't going to
this-
be a permanent thing, but thank you, appreciate it.
Mm.
I had any other discussion? I had a poll set up, but I'm not sure, it's not really relevant to do. So one of the, yeah, but did you feel like this was useful? How did you feel the pace was? Carol and Lori, putting you on the spot.
No, it was useful. I'm just disappointed that more people didn't show up.
Yeah, I think we're a victim. We had more people who had signed in, but anyway, I think there's just so many meetings going on with the community plan and with ours. But yeah, I'm a little surprised too. But we had a lot of participation last year with the bylaws, so maybe we built trust and people think whatever we're doing is good. Maybe I'm going to see it from that light. So, but thank you, I appreciate it. And
This is Lori.
hi, Lori.
Hi, I was having trouble technology-wise getting back my microphone on. I just wanted to say the overview was really helpful for me because I haven't been paying attention. So kind of hearing the whole scope of what you're going to be presenting in future meetings was helpful for me. And hopefully people will watch it, in the recordings, because I know I often go back and do that with different things. And
Okay,
tonight was a science pub that a lot of people were going to, so you had competition.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I wonder if we're going to have, gosh, we may just run into that. We were really careful to not, to coordinate with other NCAC groups like the community plan to make sure we were, we weren't
Yeah,
getting into
it's
each
just
other's schedules. But
it's so tough. We at the last community plan meeting, we were competing with a bunch of political organizations that were having things, and you can't avoid them all. So
yeah.
anyway, I thought the evening was helpful, very helpful for getting an overview of what you've been doing, and I thank you also all the effort you guys have put into it, because I know it's a tedious and very exacting process you've been through.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate your comments, both of you, and for attending. Also, sounds like that science thing sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So just on the organization of the document, you don't need to say anything tonight because I was scrolling madly, but there are kind of two ways to organize it. One is the way it's done with the policies in one section and the procedures in the section, and then the references in a third section. There's another option of having a policy with a procedure, but the difficulty with that, a procedure with the policy, the difficulty is that sometimes there are multiple procedures attached to a policy or multiple policies attached to procedures. So I think this is what we had decided was the best way to go. So, but think about that if you have any input. And I think that's it. Does committee members, do you have any closing remarks or anything to say? Well, I just want to thank the subcommittee because I tell you, it's an incredible group of people to work with, and everybody pulls their weight. Everybody does such a great job. So, and we really appreciate the participation of the Nusquin community on this. So thank you all. And we'll see everybody back and hopefully some more people next Wednesday for our next session. And we'll be posting sometime after our Friday meeting what actual sections we're going to cover, because we'll actually, cover in more detail some of these sections and not have as many of them. So thank you. I think so. Subcommittee, any final remarks? Okay.
Another outreach task force person that just texted me.
Oh,
And
okay,
this
good.
Carol, which is awesome. Thank you, Carol.
Oh, good. Fabulous.
This is
That's
an
great.
excellent. Check mark.
Great. That's fabulous. Okay, thank you. I'm going to adjourn the meeting and stop recording.